Well, yes, thank everyone for coming. I'm excited to be here, talk about some great travel opportunities that we have coming up for this community for later in this year. So we have a fantastic tour of Portugal I'm going to talk about. I'm also going to talk about a European Christmas markets tour, a little bit of housekeeping because there are two separate ones. So I'm going to go in order. So I'll do Portugal first, and then we'll break for a few minutes just to answer some questions that we might have, and then we'll move on to the European Christmas markets. Now I know I met someone when she walked in that she's been to Portugal. Has anyone else been to Portugal yet? Just the one person? Wow, that's exciting. So how many people here are here with interest in a Portugal trip specifically, just so I can gauge the room? And then how many people for the European Christmas markets? And I saw some hands for both, so that's great. Well, I do represent Collette Tours for the state of Maine. So we are the tour company that is partnered with Merrymeeting here in Topsom to bring you both of these programs. And what you can expect from us on both of these tours is to really help you maximize your time in the destinations. We all have only so many vacation days, only so many vacation dollars, so it's really good that we take advantage of all the opportunities that we're given in these destinations. And so kind of the flow, the pacing of our tours, we've worked it out over the years. So we're getting you to these destinations, we're going to take you into the must-sees. So you're seeing the things that you'd want to do, but we're also giving you the opportunity to connect with some locals. You'll hear some of the dining experiences that I talk about, some of the cultural experiences that are so much deeper than just going and seeing the destination. You really truly are experiencing the people and the culture of each of these places. And the way that we're really able to help you do that is we do have a tour manager. So they're with you from the time you arrive in the destination up until the time that you leave to go home. And they do a few things. They really keep the group organized, they keep things running efficiently so that way you're not wasting time or standing in lines or anything like that. But they also serve as a great resource for you. We really try to take a nice balanced approach to travel. Everyone in this room is a little bit different. Everyone wants to see the world differently. So these aren't experiences where you wake up at 5 a.m. and you're with us until 9 p.m. and then we get up and do it again. We really blend our itineraries to give you some free time to do some dining on your own, to do some shopping, to explore some museums or historical areas. So the tour managers are always ready with suggestions and directions. So maybe you've researched something in advance that you want to enjoy, they can help you get there. Or maybe you have no idea what you want to do for the next 2 hours, they'll be ready with a list of suggestions to help you get there. And then the other two things that I'll highlight before I get into Portugal are the accommodations and how we travel. So all of our accommodations, where we stay at 4-star properties, so they have all of the modern amenities that you will want, and we're very strategic with the places that we stay. Again, one of our main aims is to get you into the destination. So we're staying in beautiful regions in Portugal, we're staying in the city centers in places like Prague and Vienna on the second trip, and we're able to get you really up close and personal. You can walk outside of your hotel doors and have access to the region, to the food, to museums, and to some great attractions. And then when we are changing hotels, we take care of your baggage for you, so you don't have to worry about schlepping it on and off the motor coach. You just repack it, put it outside of your hotel door, and then the next time you'll see it is at the next hotel that you're going to check into. But I will start by talking about Portugal. This is a really nice itinerary. It's a nice blend between having some time in the capital city of Lisbon. You're going to get to the sunny cliffs of the southernmost coast, which is known as the Algarve, and you're going to get to experience some of the striking shorelines that Portugal has to offer. This first slide is really going to illustrate the flow and kind of how we go in and out of these areas. There's a lot of lines on this one. It's kind of confusing because it's a very compact area, but we do fly. Come on in, no worries.
Sorry.
That's fine, we just started. I think there's a couple over here. So yes, lots of lines. We do fly in and out of Lisbon for this particular tour. So the core tour are these kind of dark lines down here. This dotted line is an extension, which I'll talk about later on. And then this kind of thing over here to Madeira Island, that's also an extension. But the core tour is right over here. So we'll be staying in the Cash Case area for a few nights down in the Algarve, and then up here in Evora for one night. But a common question that I often get is in terms of the activity level, how much walking we can expect, how much standing you can expect. On this particular tour, we kind of have a rating system. So we rate this one a 2 out of a 4. So it's kind of a leisurely approach. When we're touring together as a group, we're maybe walking or standing for 45 minutes at a time. When we set you free, if you're ready for a break, then you can absolutely take a break and go sit and have a nice glass of wine or sip a cappuccino or do a little bit of shopping. Or if you're ready to really explore these areas, you can certainly take those 45 minutes and turn them into a few hours if you're a real walker and like to just wander. That's how I am when I go places. I just take my free time and I just kind of aimlessly wander through some streets and look at some beautiful architecture and meet some locals along the way. So again, you have the tour manager that'll be ready with suggestions for you, but as long as you're comfortable with 45 minutes or so at a time, then this is a good fit for you. But we will open up in a scenic coastal resort area. This is known as the Portuguese Riviera. We'll spend our first 3 nights in a little coastal town known as Cascais. And the Riviera is a part of Portugal that stretches from the capital city of Lisbon all the way over to Cascais. And this has a beautiful coastline for you. It's an area in Portugal that's kind of synonymous with elite vacationers. So specifically, a lot of those kind of the Ritz and the famous, they come here specifically in September, October. So that's why November is a very nice time to travel. It's kind of after the very busy tourist season, but the weather is still quite mild and comfortable for you to do some touring and get in and around. This particular area also has some world-class surfing conditions, so it's very common to see some surfers out. They're very fun to admire when you're sitting there with your morning cup of coffee or just doing a little walk along the shore. But this area, as I mentioned, it's for the rich and famous at one point in time. There's also a rich history of some exiled European royalty and nobility that came and lived in this area. So you're going to find a lot of these palaces, a lot of these mansions that are scattered amongst the bays. They call them the stunning bays of Cascais. So there's 3 different bays that you'll have kind of the opportunities to meander through. And then in addition to that, they have some very good upscale restaurants to choose from, some beautiful beaches. So it's a nice kind of balance between some historical context and also just some beautiful vistas to enjoy. But our first evening in Portugal, we will join together for what we call our welcome dinner. We do these on all of our tours, and it's a great opportunity to meet your fellow travelers. Now that's kind of where I'll take a pause, because another common question that I get is, how many people are on these trips? So our trips at Collette, we have about 40 travelers, give or take, that travel on these tours. From Merrymeeting, we have about 10 seats that we've reserved. So we're expecting 10 or so people from this area in Maine, and then in the destination you're going to meet another 30 or so travelers. They might have booked through an adult education program down in Florida, or maybe they booked through their travel agent out west in San Francisco. But one of the real benefits of guided traveling is the camaraderie on tour. So it's nice you'll have your little core group from here in Topsom, but in the destination you're going to meet some fabulous like-minded individuals who you're traveling with. So this first evening is a wonderful opportunity for you to meet one another. When we do meals, when we're doing lunches or dinners, we're taking you into local restaurants. So we're not doing buffets at the hotel. Again, we're really aiming to create that cultural experience and give you the authentic cuisine. So this first evening we go into a traditional Portuguese restaurant. We have some Portuguese tapas, some nice wine, some nice conversation, and then it's off to bed, because the first day you're a little bit useless when you take a red-eye flight over to Europe. So the next day is when the fun really begins and we start our exploration. So we're going to begin the first day with a nice panoramic tour through Lisbon. We're going to take in some of the most famous sites. And the picture here is of the famous Alfama district. So this is the oldest quarter in the city of Lisbon. It sits atop a hill. And when you're in Lisbon, you're going to learn about the 7 hills of Lisbon. They're synonymous with the city. You have these different trams that climb the hills to help the locals, so that way they're not constantly walking up and down hills. But this particular area, it's got some very old cobblestone streets, some beautiful buildings, some very kind of quaint and narrow walkways, winding roads. So we'll drive through this area, kind of admire it. And then Portugal is home to a lot of different UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So we're going to see many on this particular tour. There's a couple that I'll highlight now. The first one that you see photoed here is called the Bellum Tower. And this once functioned as a fortress. It also functioned as an ongoing port for explorers during the Age of Discovery. So this particular structure dates back to about the 1500s. It sits beautifully along the river. And I mentioned the Age of Discovery. You're going to hear that a few times this evening. You're certainly going to hear it a lot while you're in Portugal, because Portugal was a very kind of key figure in the Age of Discovery, which was predominantly from the 15th to the 17th centuries. So it was a point in European history where you had seafaring Europeans, and they traveled across the globe to explore, to colonize, and to ultimately conquer different regions around the world. So the second site that we're going to see, also a UNESCO site, is called the Monument to the Discovery. So this also sits along the river. It was built in the 1950s to honor some of those Portuguese explorers from that age of discovery. There's over 30 different statues that you'll get to enjoy and learn a little bit about. The next stop we'll make is at a 16th century monastery. This is another product of the Age of Discovery, and it was built to really be a symbol of power in Portugal. So it's a very grand, a very large, kind of Portuguese Gothic style of architecture. And inside is a very famous tomb. So there's a Portuguese explorer, his name was Vasco da Gama, so he's buried in here, and he was the first European to reach India by sea. So you'll learn a little bit about Vasco da Gama here in the monastery. And then we're going to return back to the cash case area. Again, a beautiful vista for you. You'll have some time to enjoy some of the seaside cafes that they have. There's some beautiful ceramics in this area, so if you enjoy some shopping for things like ceramics or lace, maybe different hand-woven works, and this is a popular area to find things like that. And then you're going to have a little bit of free time to enjoy this particular area, do some of that shopping, maybe you're ready for a quick nap, or to just sit and rest your feet. And then in the evening, we do have an optional experience for you. So this is something that you can decide to opt into, or if you prefer to just take some R&R time for yourself, you can absolutely do this. But we call this Lisbon by night, so we're going to go back to Lisbon, and it's an evening that's really going to feature some Portuguese cuisine for you, some great wine, and we're going to have some local artists that are going to be performing what is called traditional fado for you. And fado is just this beautiful blend between a singer, and then they have these very unique 12-string guitars. You can see kind of up the neck that they tune a little bit different if you've ever seen a 12-string guitar over here, but a very traditional evening for you to admire the cuisine, but also the culture here in Lisbon. The next day, we're going to continue on to some very gorgeous villages. So the first one that we're going to visit is called Óbidos, and this is an area that's very popular for having these whitewashed houses. They're held snugly by these medieval walls that you can kind of see that line the city. And this is a very small town. It sits right along the Atlantic coast, and they have very rich kind of origins. So the origins can be traced all the way back to early Roman settlements. And no trip to Óbidos is complete without savoring, they call it a cherry liqueur. I cannot pronounce the Portuguese word. I've tried many, many times, so I just stick with cherry liqueur, but it's synonymous with this town. So everyone, while you're there, you have to hop into a local restaurant or a local pub and try some of this liquor. You can also buy it in bottles. So I know a lot of travelers, they'll buy it, put it in their checked luggage to bring home, or they'll buy it and enjoy it for the rest of their trip. The next village that we're going to visit is a very picturesque town. This is known as Sintra. And this town was a favorite summer residence for Portuguese kings for about 6 different centuries. And it's very beautiful. They chose here specifically because of its beauty, because of its unique architecture. So you have these rippling mountains, a very dense forest that surrounds the area. In the center of town, you have some exotic gardens, which in November should still be in a pretty good bloom. And then some glittering palaces. It's one of those destinations, not just in Europe, but really in the world, that kind of feels like it's been torn out of a fairy tale. That's how a lot of people have described Sintra to me. And in Sintra, we have a couple of different ways that you can go about exploring the area. So some people will just take the opportunity to enjoy some free time, to enjoy the quaint hilltop village, to walk through some of the winding streets. There's a lot of different cork products here in Sintra, as well as some delicious pastries that you can enjoy. Or they do have a very famous palace, so it's called the National Palace of Sintra. It's got a very rich history that dates back about 1,000 years. The current structure that you'll see was built in about the 1500s, but it was really an ongoing process from the 11th century on. So there's been many different figures that have resided here in the palace. And then we're going to start making our way back towards our hotel, but we're going to make a stop at what is known as the Cabo de Roca. And this is actually the westernmost point on the continental Europe. So it's a beautiful area. It's got these rocky beaches below you. You've got these rock formations that kind of jut out from the Atlantic. And you can just get some fantastic photos here and really feel kind of the cool ocean air as it blows in. The next day we're going to dive into the charming countryside of Portugal, and we're going to visit a small town, and this town is regarded as the village of the rugs. So here we're going to learn about the very fascinating history of the different Portuguese tapestries that have been made in this area ever since the Middle Ages. And then another very prominent product of Portugal for many, many years is cork. So we're going to take you to a family-owned cork factory. You'll get to meet the family, and we're going to learn all about the product's importance to the local economy. We're going to learn about the trade that it's been a part of for many different years, and really come to understand and appreciate why Portugal is the world's top producer of cork. Now, it is harvested from what is called cork oak, And in Portuguese, they call it sombreiro. Again, I'm not sure on the pronunciation, but it's close. But they'll tell you about that when you're over there. But we'll learn about some of the different products that they're able to transform this into. The one that I always think of is, of course, wine. But there's many different uses. You'll see many different beautiful pieces of art that they've created from the cork in this area as well. Next up, we're going to take you over to a very historic area. This is a town known as Evora, and they refer to it as the Museum City of Portugal. It's one of the most beautifully preserved medieval towns that they have over in Europe. And it's got these beautiful architectural styles here in town, some very old streets. It's another walled city for you. And aside from its historic and aesthetic kind of virtues, I would say, Evora is also a very lively university town. So there's some fabulous dining opportunities for you that serve up many different authentic regional cuisines. So we'll stay here for an evening and have an opportunity to really dive into the nightlife of Evora. Also inside the medieval walls, you have a couple of old Roman ruins. So there's a 2nd century Roman temple to Diana. Diana was a Roman goddess. There's also a 16th century chapel, and it's called the Chapel to the Bones. The next day we're going to start journeying to the southernmost coast of Portugal. So this region of Portugal is known as the Algarve. And on the way we're going to make a stop at a very beautiful village. This is known as Montserrat. And this is a very rich history. Again, it dates all the way back to the Neolithic period. And this is one of those places on earth that kind of feels like it never moved on. Like time just reached a certain point and then it stopped. And then the architecture here, the buildings here, the people here just have kind of remained unchanged. So a very beautiful area to enjoy. It's got this gorgeous landscape that you can look out, and it's kind of the rolling hills of the countryside of Portugal. And a lot of people will refer to it as kind of an open-air museum, because no matter where you go, no matter where you turn, it looks like you're enjoying some piece of history. And the tour manager will be with you to talk about some of these things along the way. But then the next stop, we're going to arrive in the Algarve region. We're going to be staying in a very historic resort town known as Lagos. And this has a very rich Moorish as well as Renaissance influences throughout the entire region. Again, there's another walled city for you going back to the 16th century. But this particular town boasts a very rich seafaring history. It's got some beautiful beaches to explore and a very authentic Portuguese character. It's one of the most popular tourist destinations of all of Portugal. So we're going to dive into this area. We're going to enjoy it. It is an old port city, so there's many different navigators and voyagers that started their expeditions from here in Lagos. It's also home to the first school of the navigators. And this is a statue of a very famous voyager. He's known as the Prince Henry the Navigator, and he began his explorations here. Despite his name, he actually didn't venture on too many expeditions himself. He was the type of person who funded the expedition. So he kind of did that to satisfy his own curiosities, certainly wanted to spread Christianity, he wanted to spread the wealth, spread the rule and territory of Portugal. So he funded many different of these expeditions, and his actions really helped spark that Age of Discovery movement. So you'll learn a lot about Prince Henry over here. You'll see his statue in the center of town. And then you're going to have a lot of free time to enjoy the beautiful vistas of Algarve on your own. Truly, this is one of those kind of postcard-worthy coastlines. You've got these crystal clear blue waters that crash into the waves below. Again, some great beaches that you can enjoy. Another staple of the Algarve is the seafood. So I know we're from Maine, so we have great seafood. But if you enjoy it, you've got to try it everywhere you go, because it's always a little bit different. They always prepare it differently than we prepare it over here. So it's a great area to enjoy some great seafood. They have some beautiful pottery in this part of the country as well. So if that's something that you enjoy, it's hard to bring home unless you get some small vases or something like that. But it's certainly wonderful to admire. And the climate here is very mild. So I mentioned earlier that November is a nice time to go. I kind of consider it the perfect touring weather. It's going to be a lot of, it should be, who knows, should be, a lot of high, like 60-degree days, low 70-degree days, which is perfect to me. You're not too hot, but you're also not cold. You're not going to need, any parkas or anything too crazy. But you'll have the opportunity, again, we're hardy Mainers, so you can go down onto the beach. You'll be able to put your feet in the water. It should be pretty warm that time of year still. And if you're up for it, you can certainly take a dip. But beautiful, mild climate for you. We do have another optional experience for you if you'd rather not have free time. And this is going to take you kind of to a different perspective. So we take you out onto a boat and we enjoy the Algarve from the water. So we're going to pass by some of these cliffs, some of the gorgeous kind of bays in the area, and then we're going to take you to an area where we actually transfer you into even smaller boats. So these are like kind of large rafts, I guess you could call them. So you certainly want to be comfortable out on the water, but this is going to really allow you to get up close and personal. We're able to go right into these bays, into these different caves and grottos that are kind of spread throughout the southernmost coast of Portugal. And then the next day we're going to journey to a town called Faro, and here you have a protected lagoon landscape. So there's a system of barrier islands in this area. It's connected to the sea through a series of inlets. And in Faro, they have a very rich historic center. So this is one of the oldest cities that you're going to see on this particular journey over to Portugal. There's 9th century walls that surround the city. They were built by the Romans many, many years ago. And you have a Renaissance Arab cathedral right in the center of town. And it was actually heavily bombed during World War II. So they have rebuilt it since, but you can still see some remnants of those World War II bombings. Certainly learn a little bit about those stories while we're over there. And then we have a very fun lunch for you. So we're really going to discover the flavors of the region. We're going to be met by a local chef, and they're really going to highlight the local gastronomy in the southern part of Portugal. And so they're going to give you a live cooking demonstration. And right in front of you, they're going to prepare a nice tasting menu for you. It's going to feature some of the remarkable dishes of this region. And you're going to have some great liqueurs paired with it, maybe some of that cherry liqueur, certainly some Portuguese wine, and then some fabulous pastries to round it out. After lunch, we're going to continue on to another town. This is known as Tavira. This is another town that really just bleeds a lot of Moorish influences, specifically in the architecture. But there's also some beautiful beaches and a very modern atmosphere in this particular town. A lot of people refer to this town as kind of one of the best kept secrets of the Algarve. It's kind of unspoiled by overdevelopment of tourism. So we specifically go here to give you that opportunity to see something a little bit different, to see something a little bit more authentic in terms of way of life and the people that you'll have the opportunity to meet. The city kind of straddles a beautiful river. You've got these Roman-era bridges that cross it, and you can cross over them and just take some gorgeous pictures of the skyline across from you. But we will return to Lagos in the evening. You'll have an evening at leisure here, so a great opportunity to enjoy some of the resort amenities that you have. Great opportunity to go and get a nice meal just on your own. And then the next day, we're going to start journeying back towards Lisbon. We're going to make a stop at a very charming agricultural village. And this area is known for some great red wine. It's known for some olive trees, some beautiful country estates. And amongst the farmland, you're also going to find some intricate stoneware, some beautiful craftsmanship. This village also has some world-renowned cheeses that you can have the opportunity to buy and taste while we're in the area. But we also are going to meet some local artisans at their family-run shop, and we're going to learn about the famous Portuguese tiles. So these are the tiles. You can kind of see some photos here, and they're glazed ceramic tiles. They're found predominantly throughout Portugal, also throughout Spain. Extremely common to see in churches and palaces. So as you're going into some of these places along the way, you'll certainly notice some of these tiles. The traditional tiles are usually blue and white, but nowadays they really use all different colors depending on the project that they're working on. So very fascinating experience to learn about. You get to see it firsthand, and again, you get to have those conversations with the people that do it every single day. And then we're starting to kind of wrap things up on the main core trip over to Portugal. So we have a nice farewell dinner. Similar to our welcome dinner, I always love the farewell dinners because it's kind of an opportunity to look back and talk about the experiences that you just shared for the past several days together. A lot of people on tour, they really do create lifelong friends that they keep in touch with, whether they're people from right here in Topstone or someone that they met that happened to be traveling with them from another part of the country. But a wonderful ending dinner for you in Lisbon. And then the next day, if you're flying home and not spending any extra time over in Portugal, we'll get you to the airport and fly you back to Boston. Now again, there are a couple of extensions on this, so I'll share a little bit about those. So we do have a pre-tour extension, so you're going a long way. So if you're really wanting to knock Portugal out of the park and get through as much as you can in one trip, then adding on both of these extensions really gives you that opportunity to, if you have the extra time. So the first one is going into Porto, so you go over a few nights early. You have 3 nights in this, and I like to highlight that these are hosted experiences. And so what that means is a little bit different from the core trip. With the core trip, you have the tour manager that's with you the whole time. With the hosted experiences, you always have a Collette representative at your disposal, but it's not the same person that's on the tour with you. And the style is kind of to get you acquainted with the city, but then give you some time to enjoy on your own. So some of the things that we'll do together, we're of course going to explore all that the city has to offer. As you can see, it's an extremely colorful seaside village. It's got a nice kind of architectural eye here for you, and it's famous for some very quiet cafes. Of course, if you're a wine lover, you've heard of port wine that comes from this area. So there's many different wine shops that you can go into to do some tastings and to buy some bottles to bring back home or enjoy for the rest of your journeys throughout Portugal. But we will take you on a nice kind of orientation tour. We bring on a local guide for you that's from Porto, I should say, and they know the area like the back of their hand. So I always love the expert guides and how they kind of knock it off for you, because they can point out some great areas along the way and things that you might want to go back and revisit during some free time. But they're going to take us through some of the ornate squares of the city. We're also going to visit the São Bento train station that you have pictured here. And in the train station, they have these iconic tiles, and they depict different moments in history, in Portuguese history. So you'll take a moment to stop at each tile, learn a little bit about the historical context of why they were painted and created that way. And then we're going to meet a local chocolate maker. We're going to visit a family-run chocolatier store. It's been in business for over 100 years, and we're going to learn about some of the different generations of chocolatiers that have come through here. We're of course going to get to taste some of the delicious treats, because you have to when you're in a candy store, but a very fun experience for you. And then as a group, we're going to cross this ginormous bridge into kind of the adjacent city. It offers you with these gorgeous views of the skyline of Porto. And then, as I mentioned, there's some great wine from this region. So we're going to take you to a wine cellar. We're going to go down into it. We're going to learn a little bit about port wine, about the production process, about the prominence in the region, and then of course you're going to get to taste some of that. And then we're going to set you free, and you're going to have the afternoon to explore these cities at your leisure. And then the first evening, we'll join back together and have a nice welcome dinner in a Porto restaurant for you. But there's some wonderful things to explore in Porto during your free time. This is a bookstore, and it's one of the most beautiful bookstores in the world. They have these sweeping staircases that kind of circle these grand collections of books. And many people will tell you that it's the most beautiful bookstore. But there's some historic figures that have been here. J.K. Rowling, who created Harry Potter, it's kind of rumored that she wrote some of Harry Potter here, that this particular bookstore served as different influences for her when she was writing those novels, and specifically the staircases are very reminiscent if you've read those books or if you've seen those movies. So she lived in Porto for about 10 years. She is said to have had coffee on the second floor of the bookstore very regularly. So very, very fun experience to go and walk through. And then to get you down to Lisbon for the main tour, we're going to take a train down to Lisbon. We'll transfer you over to Cascais, where your hotel is, and then the rest of the travelers will arrive to meet you. And then on the back end, we're going to take you to an island of Madeira. So this is right off the Portuguese coast, and this boasts a really nice subtropical climate for you. It's got these very beautiful mountain ranges, some volcanic caves for you to explore. So usually when we travel over, with this being on the back end of the trip, we arrive in the early afternoon for the most part. They refer to this particular island as the Pearl of the Atlantic. And you're going to have some free time when we arrive to get a nice meal in. And then we're going to take a nice walking tour of the downtown area. So this is called Funchal. They have a beautiful old downtown. It's got these quaint, narrow streets, some historical sites. There's a 15th century cathedral in the center of town. And then we're going to go to one of the most beautiful places on the island. This is a botanical garden. They have over 2,500 different plants from all over the world. And they really work hard year-round to create these beautiful designs of floral work, and then you've got the striking, beautiful blue waters off in the distance along the way too. And then you're going to have some free time in Funchal. So again, another hosted experience for you. This is a great opportunity to just enjoy all that the island has to offer. If you did the pre-extension, if you did the full tour, you're certainly probably starting to get tired at this point. So the hotel that we stay at has some great amenities for you. If you're ready for just some relaxation, island time, then there's a great opportunity for that. There's also a museum that's called the Sacred Art Museum, and this dives into the fascinating history of the sugarcane trade on the island. And no matter how you spend the day, we will gather in the evening. We're going to have a traditional dinner. They call this the espetada, and it features some folk dancers, some lively music to entertain you, and some of the favorite local dishes that they actually cook right over an open flame in front of you. And then the next day, we're going to begin with a little bit more touring together. So we're going to go to a traditional village. This has a very beautiful bay for you. And this served as a very special retreat for Sir Winston Churchill. He's one who created many different works of art and paintings of the island of Madeira. It really inspired him. So you'll certainly see a lot of his prints throughout the island as you journey through as well. And then next up, we are going to visit one of those sugar mills. We're going to learn about the importance of the sugarcane production to the island. It really dates back to about the 15th century. While we're there, we're going to sample some of the specialties that are made right here at the mill. And then we're going to continue on to this beautiful fishing village. This offers you an opportunity to do some swimming. So you see these little pools that kind of hug the sea. And these are volcanic pools. So they're heated by the natural volcanic geothermal energy below. So they're very warm, very inviting, very relaxing waters for you to enjoy. And then we will return to Funchal, where we will board a flight. So we fly back to Lisbon, and then you spend one final night in Lisbon, and then fly back home the next day if you add on that experience. Now again, as I said when I started, one of the aims here is really to make your travel experience easy and effortless. So that actually begins right here in your hometown. We will come, we'll pick you up, we'll take you down to Logan Airport for your flights. This is regardless of if you do just the core trip, if you do the extensions, regardless of what you're doing, we will come and get you, whether it's just you or whether it's the full group of 10. We do include that. And then on the back end, if you fly into Logan, we'll be waiting for you. We'll get you back to your cars up here in the Topsom area and get you home, and you just don't have to worry about the driving or the parking, which is a really nice way to kind of start and end our trips. And even though these are guided experiences, there's many ways for you to personalize your adventures. So we talked about the extensions. If you just want a little bit of extra time for the main tour, maybe you want to go over to Lisbon a night earlier, have an extra night on the back end, we can certainly make those arrangements for you. We talked about the 2 optional excursions on this one, and there's plenty of opportunities to really enhance this during your free time and take advantage of all of that and the resources that you have in the tour manager. And then, as we've all learned the hard way the past few years, we just don't know what the world's going to throw at us, or our lives are going to throw at us. So it's very important that anyone who's traveling always opt into travel insurance. Our policy makes it very easy for you, the travelers. You can cancel up until the day prior to travel for any reason and receive a full cash refund. So you just let us know you're not going. We refund. The only thing that you would forfeit is the cost of the insurance itself. And then while traveling, it has all of the peace of mind coverage that you need if you lose a bag, if you get injured, if you're feeling sick, something like that, or if there's a medical emergency back home that takes you away from the tour. So it does have those coverages on tour. Now, if you've traveled with Collette in the past, or if this is going to be your first trip with us, we do have our loyalty program. We call it the Passport Club. So if you travel within 12 months of your most recent tour, you will receive a discount off of the next one. And then if you're traveling within 13 to 24 months, then there's a slightly smaller discount. Now, for both this tour and the European Christmas Market Tour, you do need a passport. So when you go home today, I encourage everyone to peek at your passports if you have them. You want to make sure that you have at least 8 months of validity on your passports beyond the travel date. So both of these trips are in the November-December timeframe. So you really want a passport that's valid through the end of next summer. That's a requirement when you're going to a lot of places in Europe. So if your passport's set to expire soon, there's plenty of time to get the renewals in. Or if you don't have a passport, there's plenty of time for you to get those new applications in. And then there is a new process for visas if you're traveling to Europe. It's still a little bit up in the air of when exactly they're going to start requiring this. So that's why I'm putting this up there, just so that way you kind of know that it might be something that you need to do. What I can tell you is it's a very simple process. You do it right online. It's maybe $20 or $30. Once you do it, it's supposed to be good for 2 years, and it's good to anywhere traveling in the EU. So if you're doing this trip and then next year you have a trip planned to, I don't know, France or something, then your visa will still be good. We will keep you informed of if this is something that you're going to need for either of these trips a little bit closer to departure, but not too much to worry about. You don't have to mail away anything. You just kind of do it all online. And then to review kind of all the logistics for the Portugal tour. So the core tour, if you're not adding on any extra time or extensions, we're departing here November 4th. We're returning on November 13th. And the pricing per person, the double based on 2 people sharing a room, $31.29. If you're a solo traveler, $36.29. And what that pricing includes are your hometown pickup from here in Topsom, the flights from Logan Airport, all of the experiences I highlighted and that are highlighted in these brochures, and then all the taxes and fees, luggage is included, those types of things. And then that optional insurance is an additional $449 per person. So if you're thinking about signing up for this, then what's required for deposit is $698 plus that insurance. We are accepting reservations up until May 1st. It is on a first come, first serve. So I mentioned there's only about 10 seats. If we hit the 10 and we need a few more, we'll try our best. But we have 10 guaranteed seats at this point for this particular community. And then the remaining balances will be due in September. Now there's a few ways that you can go about getting more information or signing up. You do have these flyers, which highlighted a lot of what I talked about today. There is also a group exclusive web link that you have here. It's also posted here in the bottom right corner in that blue box. So if you get home today and want to go and look that over, there's some wonderful FAQs that talks about currency, it talks about the power conversion that you need, those types of questions. It talks about the weather at the time of year that you're traveling. So if you get home and you forgot to ask a question tonight, then that's there. You can sign up right through that link if you're ready to do it. And then if you have any specific questions, you can also contact Jose here. He was in here a few minutes ago with Merrymeeting, and he can relay some questions to us if there's anything else to be covered. But this is a good kind of period to break for a couple minutes, and I'm happy to answer questions that folks may have on the Portugal tour.
I have a question about your travel insurance. Through which insurance company do you offer the travel insurance?
Yep, so two parts. So the first part, the cancellation waiver, that is underwritten by Collette Tours. So we don't use an insurance. We have like a bank account that we've had for many, many years that we've specifically set up for this insurance. So we underwrite the cancellation waiver. And then the on-trip benefits, so if you lose a bag, if you twist an ankle, if there's an emergency back home, our partner for that is TravelX Insurance. Anything else on Portugal? Yes?
Yeah. Is it fun to go to the beach and stay for 2 or 3 hours and swim?
Yep, you mean in Algarve, in the Algarve? Yeah, so you have a full day in that area free. There is that optional excursion, so if you do the optional excursions, you can even do some of your times, but potentially if you wanted a full beach day, you could do that. Again, the temperature that time of year is going to be high 60s, low 70s. For me, that's still comfortable beach weather. For some people, not so much, but kind of is a personal preference at that point. But yeah, you'll have some free time to enjoy.
And do they do scuba diving?
I mean, you might be able to find a local outfitter that can help you do that. If you're thinking of doing that, you probably want to do a little bit of research in advance to get that arranged. And certainly, you probably want to go over with your, scuba certification, so that way you're ready to go. But certainly, you can do a full day, so if you can find it down there. Again, you're staying in Lagos, so something in that area, they probably could make those arrangements. Yep.
Yeah, a little bit more about the insurance. So the insurance would cover you if you got sick?
While traveling?
While
Yeah,
traveling?
yeah, so if you fall ill, COVID, flu, food poisoning,
Okay.
whatever it may be, if you end up in a hospital, what it'll do is a few things. It'll cover the medical expenses,
Yes.
but then also, let's say that it's something a little bit more severe, you lose 2 days on the tour because you have to end early, it'll make you whole, so it'll kind of prorate and reimburse you for your days lost on tour, as well as reimburse you for out-of-pocket expenses. So maybe you had to stay an extra day and had to change your flights, it'll reimburse you for those out-of-pockets that will cost you to change the flight. Yep. Here, back over here.
Yeah. I just, regarding that insurance.
Yeah.
If you cancel any time through Collette, does that include reimbursement for the airfare too?
It covers everything. So the insurance cost, if you take the insurance at $449 per person, the only thing you stand to forfeit if you cancel is the $449 per person. So the full $31.29. If you've added on any extensions, if you've upgraded to business class, that's all covered by the insurance at $449.
What is the masking policy, or do you have to go by?
Well, we always go by what the local requirements are.
Yeah.
For most places in Europe right now, there's no requirements for testing, for vaccination, or for masking. Certainly, you may see some people on board that are wearing it when they're on the motor coach, just out of a comfort thing for themselves. But at this point, it's not a requirement. If there was ever a change in that, we would notify anyone who signed up and said, hey, we've changed our policy. You need to be vaccinated or whatever it may be. For a long time, it was a requirement to be vaccinated and or test to travel, but a lot of the destinations have dropped that. So we kind of follow whatever the local destination is requiring.
What's good amount of money to bring for extra?
It depends how crazy you want to go. You don't need too much. I mean, most places are going to accept your Visa, accept your MasterCard. For spending money, I personally pull it from an ATM when I get over there because my bank has good international policies. So check with your banking institutions to see what they do, or what they might charge you. If they don't charge anything, then pull out 100 or 200 euro every time you need it. But certainly if you're thinking of going over with the cash in hand and you want to take a larger sum, then that's an option. But you don't need a ton of cash for this unless you're really planning on going hard in the markets. For the Christmas markets, it might be a little bit different because that's a little bit shopping focused in the Christmas markets. But for this one, you won't need too much cash.
I do have a cork purse.
You do?
I do, it's wonderful.
Nice,
Do
yeah.
you have a what?
A cork
Purse.
pocketbook, a purse. It's beautiful.
Oh,
It's all, the front is all
Oh.
painted, designed, and, yeah, they belts, jewelry, they make clothes with it. So this one outfit is quite pricey, but it was pretty unique.
And very unique.
Yeah.
A lot of travelers come back with cork products, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
What happens if you get COVID? Who's gonna help you get food and stuff?
So your tour manager, they're gonna set you up, they're never gonna leave you abandoned, and then they'll set you up, whether you're staying at the hotel that we were at or another hotel. Most hotels in the world now have a COVID policy, where if you get COVID while you're out there, then they'll help you order takeout, or, they'll make sure that you're well taken care of. But your tour manager will kind of get you situated and get you comfortable, and then show must go on at some point. So usually the tour continues on, and then you'll have access to a Collette representative who can assist you, over the phone and things like that.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anything else on Portugal? If something comes to you later, there's still time for questions, but we're good? Okay, so I'm gonna continue on, and we're gonna move to a different part of Europe, a little bit later in the year, so November 25th through December 3rd. We're gonna have a wonderful experience to get to the European Christmas markets. So this is gonna feature 3 imperial cities. So you have Budapest, you have Prague, you have Vienna. 2 or 3 of those are my favorite cities in Europe that I have traveled to. And it's just a wonderful time of year to travel. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you. Thank you. Have a good night. So beautiful areas. You get to enjoy all of these wonderful cities have to offer, and you get to do so at one of the most magical, one of the most wonderful times of year during the Christmas season. But here's the flow of this particular tour. So you'll see that we fly into Prague for this one. We have 3 nights there. We travel by motor coach down to Vienna. We have 2 nights there. We travel by motor coach down to Budapest, and we have 3 nights there. I really love the flow of this. You get 2 or 3 nights in each place, really offering you that opportunity to dive in, unpack your bags for a few minutes, and just enjoy these great cities. You see some kind of stopping points along the way that I will highlight. Again, in terms of activity level for this one's a little bit faster paced than the other one, not too much. So we rate this a 3 out of a 4. And so when we're walking, when we're standing, it's maybe 1 to 2 hours at a time as a group. These are larger cities that we're going to be in, a lot of cobblestones, some stairwells, things like that. So you want to be comfortable walking through those areas. Certainly this time of year, they don't get snow like we get it. So you might get a few snow showers as you travel through these areas, but you shouldn't need any heavy winter boots or anything like that. But certainly going to want something with good treads. Going to want to pack your hats and mittens and nice coats for this one. But that's part of the experience of traveling this time of year. When I went and last time I was in Vienna and Budapest, I was in there kind of mid-November, and it was comfortable. There were some days where I was actually in just this vest, and then there were some days where I had a slightly larger coat with me, but it was pretty comfortable, not too bad. So they tend not to get the bitter Decembers that we can sometimes experience here in Maine. But we are going to have our overnight flights. We'll arrive in Prague, known as the City of 100 Spires, which if you want, you can try and count them while you're there, but many people don't make it past the 10th or 12th because there's a lot. But Prague is full of some ancient landmarks for you, some very beautiful medieval architecture. The first evening, we're going to have our welcome dinner. So again, a great opportunity to go to a local restaurant, meet the other travelers that are coming from the community. And then we're going to dive into Portugal for the next 3 nights and learn all about the cultural way of life here in Portugal, in Prague. Different P. But many different kind of figureheads that have lived here. People like Mozart have lived on the streets here in Prague. And there's a very beautiful gemstone here. So it's called the Blood Red Garnet. It is the official Czech national gem. And if you're into jewelry at all, it's a staple to buy. It's a very it's a necessity of an urban accessory, I guess you could call it. You'll see it through some of the markets that you'll be in, but certainly any of the jewelry stores. So that time of year, if you're looking for something to bring home for a loved one or a niece or nephew or something like that for a Christmas gift, it's a very nice stone to bring back with you. But this trip is all about feeling the magic, feeling the wonder of these cities, dressed up in their holiday best. So we're going to set off on a nice panoramic tour on our first day in Prague. We're going to explore the Castle District, which features the very majestic Prague Castle. You have a gorgeous Christmas market right in front of the castle. And then we're going to continue on and take in a very iconic bridge in town. So this is known as the Charles Bridge. It's a medieval structure. It stretches right over the river. And it served as a very important connection point between Prague Castle and between the city's old town. So it was a land connection that really made Prague an important piece in the trade route between Eastern and Western Europe. And then we're going to break, and we have something that we call Choice on Tour. So we have 2 included experiences for you, and you get to choose which one you would rather do for a couple of hours. So one is a Jewish heritage tour, the other is a nice cruise out onto the river. And the first option is about diving into the city's Jewish heritage. We're going to visit the oldest active synagogue in all of Europe. And this particular synagogue was built during the 13th century. It was the pulpit of a rabbi who went by the name Rabbi Lowe. And he had a creation that they called the Golem of Prague. And it's rumored to be hidden within the synagogue. And the golem was fashioned from clay. And he brought it to life to protect and to kind of look after the 16th century ghettos in Prague from prosecution. So there's some great stories of the golem while you're here at the synagogue. And then a wonderful opportunity for you if you would rather just to get out onto the water. Again, a very unique perspective to take in the skyline as we float through the river. You get to see the Prague Castle, you get to see some beautiful islands, some gorgeous bridges, and some of those Christmas markets from out at the water. And then the remainder of the afternoon and evening is going to be yours at leisure to take in the rest of Prague independently. The most famous Christmas market that you'll find is in the Old Town Square. So you have these beautifully decorated wooden huts. They're filled with works from local artisans, some jewelry. You have some traditional foods, some great drinks. You have some great food stands where they can make the food right in front of you. Just a wonderful ambiance just to kind of peruse through this area. Certainly, as I mentioned when I was talking about the currency, you're going to want a little bit of extra cash when you go on this particular journey because a big focus of it is the Christmas markets, and many of those will be kind of a cash-only experience. The next day we're going to wake up, we're going to board a train, and we're going to head up to Dresden, Germany. And this particular town is known as the Florence on the Elbe, which is kind of a tribute to its very beautiful architectural eye. There's some wonderful collections of art, some porcelain collections here in the city, some beautiful jewelry as we journey along. We're going to be joined by a local expert, and they're going to take us on a tour that highlights some of these architectural works, some of the treasures throughout the city. They have this is the Royal Palace in town that we'll go and have the opportunity to visit. But the focal point and the main reason why we're traveling to Dresden on this particular itinerary is because Dresden is home to the world's oldest Christmas market. It goes back all the way to the year 1434. It's happened every year since, except for maybe a few things here and there like COVID that tripped it up for a year or so. But we're going to have some time to enjoy the stalls. You can do some shopping. The Christmas markets in Germany have some fantastic ornaments. Some nutcrackers are very common to find here. This particular market in general too has some fascinating pottery, some good lacework, some good glassware for you. So you'll have some opportunity to have a nice lunch here, have an opportunity to enjoy this downtown area. And then we're going to start, or that night I guess, we return back to Prague for one final night. So when we return in the evening, you will have an evening at leisure to enjoy the last bit of Prague. And then the next day, we're going to start journeying through the scenic countryside of Vienna. And we're going to make a stop at a small medieval town. This is known as the Český Krumlov. There's a gorgeous castle in the middle of it. This is one of my favorite little towns that I've been to in all of Europe. I often say I went on this trip without my wife, as I do with a lot of my travels. But I say if I ever were to go back to the Czech Republic or any of this region, I would love to just go and spend a weekend here. It's got some very quaint streets. The center of town is kind of designated as a pedestrian zone. So again, it's one of those towns that really feels like it's been torn out of a fairy tale or a book because it just feels like it hasn't changed in so many years other than, you know, once you get in the buildings and in the stores, there's some modern things that you'll see, but the architecture here and just the way of life is just so unique and so beautiful. So we'll make a stop for a few hours there to explore that, kind of breaks up the drive, and then we're going to make one more stop before we arrive in Vienna. And this is really a one-of-a-kind restaurant. It's been a favorite for locals, a favorite for visitors ever since the 1800s. And we're going to indulge in a nice dinner here at this iconic spot. It's going to feature some Viennese meals for you. Two of my favorite meals that I've had when I was in Austria is the Wiener Schnitzel, found throughout all of Austria, all of Bavaria, and it's this breaded fried veal. It's very delicious, and the breading is just very light, the ones that I had anyway, so very, very good. And then strudel is another very popular pastry that you'll find. My favorite is the apple strudel, and that is one of the staples here. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to grab some apple strudels along the way. But then we will arrive in the grand city of Vienna. This is the capital of Austria, and then it's just going to be aglow for you in holiday lights. Vienna is probably my favorite in terms of European cities. It's my favorite city that I've been to in Europe. I'm fascinated with the architecture. I love the people, the ambiance, the cleanliness of the city. I found it so easy to kind of walk through and enjoy. But the first day we're going to visit one of the world's most famous palaces. So this is the Schönbrunn Palace. It rivals the Palace of Versailles in Paris, France, as one of the top palaces in the world. But this is a summer retreat of the Habsburg dynasty. They've been coming here for about 200 years. There's a massive Christmas tree and light display here. You're going to get to go into the palace and explore some of the different rooms that they used many years ago. There's kind of a nice art exhibit while you're inside, and we'll have a local guide that'll meet you that'll talk about some of the history of this particular palace along the way. And then we're going to go into the city center of Vienna, and we're going to see some beautiful architecture for you. We're going to go through some scenic parks, some of the Gothic spires that you see photoed here amongst the city. In the downtown region of Vienna, I found it extremely walkable. So this area, this is the cathedral, it's right in the center of town. And from there, if you can see the steeple, you can get to it very, very easily. And surrounding it, it has some great shopping for you, some great restaurants, and just some great Viennese way of life as you journey through. But as a group, we are going to visit a confectionery bar for you, if you will call it. So we're going to learn about the confectionery history here in the city. This is a candy workshop. It's been the same generation for many, many years. They stick to the same recipes that they've been using for 150 years here. So we're going to get to learn about some of those recipes. We're of course going to try some of the treats while we're there. And then one of my favorite meals, it's super random, but one of my favorite snacks that I had while I was in Vienna, there's this little area, and it's kind of like a carnival area of town. So there's a massive, kind of call it a Ferris wheel, but it's really an observation wheel that 6 or 10 people can go in at a time. But in that area, they have these churros, and they're the best churros that I've had in my entire life. They're just like, they just melt in your mouth, and I feel like a lot of the churros that I've had here in Maine growing up, they're like kind of hard and crusty and just not a good experience. But if you get to that area, they're very fun to enjoy, a nice treat along the way. And then there's some fabulous museums throughout Vienna to explore, so if you're a lover of art, if you're a lover of history, then you'll feel right at home here in Vienna during some free time. But there are many Christmas markets that are spread throughout the city. The most famous and the biggest one is right outside the neo-Gothic City Hall. There's a gorgeous Christmas tree for you. So this is the largest one that you're going to find. When I went there last time, it was in early November, so they're actually starting to set up for the Christmas markets. And I counted 5 different Christmas markets that I saw being set up. So I'm sure that there's even more than that. But it was very impressive. Again, they weren't even lit up yet, and I was already blown away by how massive these things were. So truly a wonderful experience to have the opportunity to enjoy. And then Vienna also has a very rich history of the arts, and specifically opera and orchestra music. So we do have a nice evening experience that you can opt into, and it's called the Sound of Vienna concert. It's going to feature the works of people like Mozart and Strauss, and it's just a wonderful orchestral event. You're going to have some fantastic musicians, some great opera singers, some ballet dancers, and they're really going to present for you an evening full of some Viennese charm and just perform for you these operatic melodies for you for the whole evening. So if that's something that interests you, it's a fascinating experience to take in. Again, one of those things that isn't necessarily for everyone. You certainly might need to have an interest to enjoy it, but it's one of those things that's a staple of the city. So even if you're not into opera or into that style of music, it's still worth it to go and enjoy and try something a little bit unique. The next day we're going to leave Vienna behind, and we're going to travel to the capital of Slovakia. So this is Bratislava. We're going to have some free time here to enjoy some lunch. We're going to dive into the fascinating 4,000-year history of this particular town. And this is a very charming Christmas market for you, yet again. Bratislava I really enjoyed. It has some world-class beer for you. The neighborhoods here are quite quaint and unique. You have the mighty Danube River that kind of flows through it. And I kind of found when I was walking into Bratislava for the first time that you can almost feel the imperialism when you walk into it. They broke free of Czechoslovakia in 1992, so this is a country that's really starting to find their own culture now that it's just Slovakia. And you can kind of just feel how their culture was just so oppressed for so many years. You can see it in the architecture, you can certainly feel it in the people a little bit. But this time of year, you might not feel that because it's all lit up for Christmas, so it might be a different perspective for you than it was for me. But then we're going to continue on into the countryside of Hungary. We're going to visit a quaint little Hungarian village, and we're going to immerse ourselves into the typical country way of life. And we're going to make a stop, and we're actually going to learn how to make strudel. So we're going to meet a local family. We're going to learn about strudel. We're going to try all the strudel we possibly can. And then we're going to have for you what we call a community-hosted dinner. So this is an experience where you're going to eat some traditional Hungarian food. You're going to have some community members that come, they prepare it for you. They get to talk a little bit about their town, their village way of life. And then we're going to continue on and arrive in the Queen on the Danube. This is Budapest. It's going to be our home for the next 2 nights. Now Budapest was formed in 1873, so there was actually 2 different sides of town. So there was Buda and then there was Pest. This is the Parliament building which sits on the Pest sign. And there again, the architectural influences here in the city are very unique. There's a lot of Parisian influences, and then there's a lot of old Russian Soviet influences here in the city. This is another one of those countries that is really starting to find their culture. They gained their independence from the Soviet Union in 1989, and they're a nation, Hungary, that has just been like torn apart over the years. Like at one point they were the Soviets, and so many different nations have kind of ruled them over the years. There was a point in history where they almost lost their language entirely, because when they would be ruled by a new nation, they were forced to adopt their way of speaking. But some old traditional Hungarians have really held that true and have been able to preserve it, and it's starting to really be revitalized and come up and be very prevalent as you journey through this particular area. So we're going to take a nice panoramic tour of Budapest. We're going to see some of the incredible neo-Gothic architecture that you have. This is the Fisherman's Bastion, and it's a beautiful area. You have the Parliament building directly across the river, which is one of the most iconic pieces on the Danube. And the Fisherman's Bastion, I enjoyed going here. I actually would encourage you, if you have some free time in the evenings, to actually come back in the evenings, because Budapest lit up at night is just absolutely stunning. So this is kind of up on a nice hill for you. It just offers gorgeous panoramic views of the area. When I went a little bit later after dinner one night. I took a cab. It was extremely comfortable. Went with a few friends and enjoyed that. But you are going to have plenty of time to enjoy Budapest on your own. There's a very prominent market here. It's called the Central Market Hall. It's an indoor market, so this is different from the Christmas markets because it's there year-round, so they have some spices for you. So paprika is a very popular Hungarian spice. That's a great kind of memento to bring home for some friends or coworkers. It's not too expensive, so you can buy a few things of it and it goes a long way. So some great things to enjoy in the Central Hall. There's also some bathhouses that are very prevalent throughout the city. So there are these great areas. They have these thermal spas where you can just hop into the waters. You can get massages. You're kind of wrapping up at this point, so it's a nice way to relax. So you can go and spend a whole day at those places. When I went for about 2.5 hours, and it was plenty. I felt like I experienced it and had that authentic kind of experience, but I didn't feel like I wasted too much time sitting in the pool either. So very, very fun. There's two in particular that really are the most popular ones, but you can go to really any one. There's some that are steps from your hotel even. So very, very easy to get around. And again, your manager will be ready, your tour manager will be ready with some suggestions if that's something that you want to enjoy. But again, there's some fascinating Christmas markets here in Budapest for you. The most popular one is right outside of St. Stephen's Basilica, which is right in the center of town. There's a gorgeous ice rink there for you if you're a skater and want to do a little skating around a Christmas tree. And then there's more beautiful areas with some great food for you, some of these great stalls. And then the last evening, we will toast farewell at our farewell dinner. So again, a wonderful opportunity for you to come together one last time, share some of those mementos and great laughs that you had on the trip. So quite a bit on this particular itinerary. Again, 3 different imperial cities to enjoy the best of. doing it at one of the most magical times of year. Even if you've traveled to these areas, going back for the Christmas markets, it's seeing it through a whole new lens and doing something a little bit different. So we hope to see you on this one. Similar to Portugal, we'll pick you up, so there's no changes there. All the same kind of insurance information as well. So for this particular tour, the core tour is leaving November 25th, coming back December 3rd. Pricing for doubles, based on 2 people sharing a room, is $3,029. If you're a solo traveler, $35.29, and again, that includes the hometown pickup from here, the flights, all of the transportation and touring throughout. The insurance on this one, also $449 per person. For this one, again, first come, first serve. We have 10 seats reserved at this point, so up until May 26th, and then remaining balances are due in September. For this one, we also have, I'll come back to this, I know a few of you are writing, but we also have another group exclusive webpage. If you want to, I know we don't have flyers for this, I don't know, I can have Jose send you the PDFs if anyone hasn't gotten one. But on this, the link on the Portugal flyer, it's the same exact link. All that's different is the number at the end. So if you just write down 1136080 and put that at the end, then you can pull up the European Christmas Markets webpage. And again, that's an area where you can go for some of those FAQs. You can sign up right through that website as well and reserve your spot. Or again, you can reach out to Jose, and he's got some great information for you and can answer any questions that you may have after tonight. But now's a good time for me to stop talking, and I'm happy to answer some questions on this itinerary.
What would be the weather?
Yeah, so it's going to be colder. We're not traveling this time of year. You might see some snow, but it's probably going to be, similar to maybe our November. They're not quite as cold as we are in December, so you might get lucky and have like a high 40-degree days, but my guess is you're going to be in the 40s most of the time, would be my guess. But you could get a cold spell, you could get a warm spell. That happens in Europe sometimes. Yes?
As far as these Christmas holiday tours, do you offer other destinations where they have Christmas markets, or are these the 3 that basically are the stars of Europe?
So there's a couple ways to look at it. I mean, this is the tour that we selected for Merrymeeting because it's kind of the most classic one that's going to take you. It's taking you to Dresden, which is the oldest, so that's a staple, and then 3 great cities that have wonderful markets. There's Christmas markets throughout all of Europe, so you can go seamlessly anywhere and enjoy Christmas markets. But this particular itinerary is diving into some of the best Christmas markets that Europe has to offer, some of the most renowned ones and things like that, some of the largest ones. That's not to say that we have other itineraries that go to other places, so whether it be Switzerland or other parts of Germany or something like that, there certainly are opportunities like that. With those situations, I would encourage you to contact if you have a local travel advisor, and just say, hey, I was at Collette presentation, and I'm curious about some of their other tour offerings, then they could certainly work with you if you're not interested in these particular cities.
Yeah, or if you're only interested in, say, maybe Vienna, but you might want to try something else. Also, how would that work? It would be kind of a tour that would be customized for you, in other words.
Right, yeah, we have our set tours. These are guided tours. We have other itineraries that do something similar in other parts. But if you're considering a Christmas market one, then this is really the staple one to consider. At that point, it would be more of a customized thing where you're traveling on your own, which has some advantages, has some disadvantages. It just kind of depends, but yep.
So this is the only one that you have that is actually got a guided tour. The rest of them actually would be when you'd be more on your own.
We're a guided tour company, so everything we do will be fully guided, so other itineraries, but this is the one that really has the focus on the Christmas markets. We have other ones that will go to different regions, and you'll happen to see a Christmas market while you're there, but it's not going to focus on all of the Christmas markets of Switzerland or something like that. So, yep. Anything else? This one? Here, over there. I'll hang out for a few minutes too, so if you have anything that you want to ask one-on-one, I'll be around, happy to answer. But I appreciate everyone's time. I hope you're able to get on one or both of these, and we'll see you at the next one. We haven't started planning for 2024 yet, but I'm sure we'll get another trip or 2 together for next year with Jose and Alan. But thanks for everyone's time. Enjoy your spring, and I'll be here for a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.